the wonderful world of linking verbs. But I'm going to take you there in a different way. We've learned enough to be able to understand what they are and how they work, okay? So, like everything I've talked about in grammar, it's everything's based on something else. So, what do we understand so far? You're listening, right, Alvin? Okay, I want you to listen. I'm going to go through this. You should understand this very clearly based on my explanation, not because you already know it, maybe. Okay, ready? Okay, so what does noun mean in Latin? Alicia?
It means name.
It, don't like it.
Noun means name in Latin.
Okay, noun means name in Latin. We know that. And what do we call a noun that follows another noun and renames that noun? Closely follows it and renames it. What do we call that? Andrew?
We call that an appositive.
And a positive, okay. So I could say that Andrew, a student in the class, answered me. Well, I could say Andrew, a student, answered. Okay, fine. Then we know that student is in a positive, renaming the noun Andrew, right? Easy. But you know, there's another way to construct this. If I say Andrew is a student, now, is student still another name for Andrew? Here, Andrew, a student, Andrew, my brother, Andrew, my best friend. I could have all sorts of nouns renaming Andrew, but I can also put it after a verb. Andrew is a student, Andrew is my friend, Andrew is my brother, right? Right? So I have a noun renaming another noun, but there's something in between here, a verb. With an appositive, there is no verb in between. With this noun, there is a verb in between. But actually, what we have is just an equation, just like in math. You can have 3 plus 5 equals 4 plus 4, 8 equals 2 plus 6. Whenever you have that, though, the equal sign, right? This is equal to that. So here is the verb, who is, Andrew is the subject. Andrew is what? Andrew is student. What did we learn? Well, in this case, we're not going to say that we learned that student is in a positive because we have this verb in there. We're not going to say that it's a direct object either because it's not receiving the action. This is no action, it's just an equal sign. So we say this is a predicate noun. Renaming the subject, Andrew. So predicate nouns are nouns which follow linking verbs and rename the subject. They don't rename another noun. They're much more specific than that. They rename the subject. That's all there is to it. This is now if I say Andrew was a student, but he dropped out. Andrew will be a student for 20 more years. He's going to med school. I can put any tense I want in here. It doesn't matter what verb I have in here. Well, I'm going to memorize 43 linking verbs. No need. That's not the point. Memorizing, some teachers have students learn the 27 helping linking verbs. But doesn't, no. The way to know whether a verb is a linking verb is to look at the word that follows it, the complement, the word that completes its meaning. If it's an action verb, you're going to have a direct object. That will be your complement that completes the meaning, right? If it's a linking verb, which means an equal sign, a linking verb is just an equal sign, you're going to have a noun here that renames the subject. Well, you can recognize that. So then you know, well, does this noun is what is the student? Does student rename the subject? Yeah. Well, then is a linking verb, I just discovered. See, I don't need to memorize the linking verbs. I need to be able to analyze and see that the complement, meaning the word that completes the meaning, that answers the question who or what after the verb, if that word renames the subject, I've got a linking verb, and this is called a predicate noun. Predicate noun, right here. Now, why is it called a predicate noun? Noun means name. So in that sense, Jerry, it means the main idea. So this main idea, if we diagram this, we're going to diagram it this way. Andrew, just going to put an A, is, well, I'm going to slant this line to show that is a linking verb because, you know, I want to show that slanting line means that this word is not a direct object. It's coming back slanting toward the subject. All right, Andrew. Andy. Andy is a student. So that's how we diagram a predicate noun. We slant the line to show, yeah, it's not just any old complement over here. This is a predicate noun, not a direct object, and it's renaming the subject. Easy, right? Now, the reason it's called a predicate noun, that was my point, everything after this big long line is the predicate of a sentence. Everything. Adverbs, verbs, helping verbs, direct objects, predicate nouns, prepositional phrases, anything, positives, anything over there is the complete predicate of a sentence. And anything on this side of the long line is the complete subject. Could be a compound subject with positives, prepositional phrases, adjectives. It's all the complete subject. I've often found that grammar books, page 1, they start with learning about a sentence and they start you right here with the complete subject and the complete predicate. But there's no way to appreciate that as a beginning grammar student because you don't know what any of the parts are. So it's meaningless, completely meaningless. So now that we know about subjects, simple subjects, and compound, and adjectives, and prepositional phrases, and adverbs, and all this stuff over here, we can appreciate, well, that's a major division. And it's visually, we can see it, it's the long line. Complete subject, complete predicate. Nice. So that's why this noun, which represents the main idea, Jerry, of the sentence, it's the noun, it's the name of the sentence, the main idea, Sean. This noun is over here in the predicate. See? So the main idea is in the predicate. How can that be the main idea? It's the subject, of course. Well, it's there because we have an equal sign, and the noun's over here. That's why it's called a predicate noun. There's a reason. I always wondered. I never found any answer in a book. It's only in my recent years of teaching grammar, well, 16 recent years, that I figured it out for myself. Oh, that's why it's called a predicate noun. Aha. Now, it just so happens we do something else. Andy is a student. You know what? Andy is smart. He's so smart. He is what? He's smart. Well, if I change this now, he is smart, I still have a good sentence. Andy is smart. I could have said Andy, a smart student, answered, so Andrew is smart. Is what is smart? Well, now, smart is not a noun. I can't hold a smart. Doesn't have, you can't have two smarts. Doesn't have person, number, or gender. It's an adjective. He's a smart student. But it just so happens that we can link an adjective to a noun this same way. It doesn't make a very complicated sentence. Your t-shirt is blue. What a complicated thought that is. No, it's not. It's a blue t-shirt. But we can turn it into a whole sentence. Students love to do this because it uses up more space in essays. Young students, you know. Oh, yeah. So we can put an adjective over here. Andy is smart. And this is not a direct adjective that we would put underneath, you know, smart student. That's a direct adjective describing a noun, but it's directly modifying it, describing it, and we diagram it straight under the noun. But when we have an adjective following a linking verb, an equal sign, well, then it's over here in the predicate, and it happens to be describing the subject, but it's way over here in the predicate, but it's describing the subject. We do it all the time, and guess what it's called? A predicate adjective. So that's the story of a predicate adjective. How do you know if you have one? Well, if you have an adjective over here that answers the question, what, after a verb, Andy is what, and that adjective is describing the subject, you have a predicate adjective and you have a linking verb. And that's how to know you have a linking verb. That's the real way. Predicate adjective. And that's the story of linking verbs. Very important. There are two kinds of verbs in the world. Well, I often say to students, okay, let's see. There are two kinds of people in the world. If you had to divide the whole world into two, and you had to divide all the people into two groups to begin with, all the people in the world, what two groups would you divide them into? What would you do? Sean? Asian, non-Asian? No. It's an old joke, but it still gets a few smiles. What would be the most basic division of all the people in the world? Asian and non-Asian comes later. But the most basic one would be what? Male and female, right. That'd be the easiest, male and female. Okay, right? Then after that you can start separating into tall and short and, you know, whatever you want. You know, educated, non-educated, all sorts of things, Asian, non-Asian. But most basically at the very beginning it's male or female. Well, if you take all the verbs in the world, verbs, imagine it, all the verbs in the world, and you divide them into two, the most basic division of all the verbs, all the way at the beginning, what would that division be? You have your what kind of verbs and your what kind of verbs. Austin? Alvin?
Helping and linking.
Can't hear you.
Helping and linking.
Not helping, no.
Action.
Action and
Linking.
action and linking, right? Helping verb comes later because you can have a helping verb with a linking verb and a helping verb with an action verb. Helping is a division, a different kind of a verb, another category that comes later. But most basically, the division of all the verbs in the world is into linking and action. Action verbs are things you do, run, jump, sing, dance, eat. And linking verbs are nothing but an equal sign. They're a mathematical symbol. That's all they are. Okay, so really very easy. Very easy. But it can be so confusing when it isn't explained, I think, this way. So you see, well, of course it makes perfect sense to me. What's the big fuss? But I tutored a couple of years ago a boy from Taiwan going to a private school there that taught in English, and he was so smart, so ahead of him, blah, 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 blah. Had already taken SAT classes, but you know, and he wanted private tutoring, and so I gave him 10 lessons, I think, one summer. And I had to go over grammar, because he didn't really know it. He said he knew it, but he didn't really. But this, for the SAT, you really need, this becomes very important, especially when it's associated, when you connect it with pronouns, which we studied today. But he never had understood this, so he finally said, oh, why didn't anyone ever tell me this before? Because he never really did understand really what a linking verb was. He memorized them and could do exercises and get correct answers, but he really didn't understand what he was doing. But now you can understand that this word is equal to the subject. It's the same thing as the subject. Either it's describing it, if it's an adjective, or it's renaming it, right? So that's the story of linking verbs right there. Now,